Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolve channel, bringing you another deck profile, this time on Tiger Control, or commonly referred to as Haven Control. This is a list I've been tinkering with and finally found a list that I like, and it kind of fits with my playstyle. A lot of the times you will be passing turn with a lot of play points up because you are a reactive deck and you want to control the board and make your opponent lose gas until you're able to play your big threats down or fill the boards up with tigers and destroy them that way. With that being said, let's get right into the deck profile. All right, so here's the list. The first thing I want to point out here is the cost curve. One thing to note is that a lot of our reactive spells and quick spells like that all cost around 4 play points. So there are a lot of turns where you have to keep 4 play points open during your opponent's turn just to threaten things. I'll be pointing out those tools that we'll be threatening our opponent with. So let's just get right into the main deck here. First things up is Hair of Illusion. We play this as a 2 of. We mostly play this later in the game to activate our Holy Sentinel amulet. So I don't really like to see this too often, but this card is still very good because it lets us force trades when our opponent chooses not to engage their followers or attack us with those followers. That way we can stop things like Lucifers that they choose not to engage immediately to wait a turn to Evo. This way we force it to engage, and then we can trade tigers into it and so forth, which is really good. The secondary effect is you pay 10 play points and then engage this and send it to the cemetery. Then you banish each follower on the field. It doesn't come up that often, but it occasionally does, so it's a good secondary option the amulet does have for you. Prison Priestess, a 3 of here, is one of the strong, powerful consistency tools for Haven. On Evolve, which it does cost 2 to evolve, it becomes a 2/2 that lets you search your deck for any amulet, reveal it to your opponent, add it to your hand. This is our main way to find whatever amulet piece we need going into like turn 5. If we want to have Holy Sentinel early, we can search it out that way. We can find other amulets that might be very good, like Dual Flames, things like that. Very strong consistency tool. I only play the Evo form as a 2 of because I've never felt like I needed the third one. You might want to play the third one. You could find something to cut in the Evo deck that you don't like as much and do that. Otherwise, I think 2 of is a very nice number. Next, Pinion Prayer. This is our early aggressive card. We also use this a lot to pop to be able to summon a Holy Falcon and also a Holy or Flame Tiger or whatever from the Holy Sentinel amulet as well. This summons a Holy Falcon that has 2/2 and Storm. We can use this to trade or put early pressure on the board immediately. A lot of times we play this on turn 1 and just let it sit there and find a good time to pop it, go for face, or trade with it if needed. Next, we play a 3 of Sacred Plea. This is a big card that like gasses us up. A lot of times people will be playing this out whenever you just have an extra mana floating that you, or play point that is floating, that you want to just play this out and go down from like 5 play points to 4 and then pass turn. And then this is kind of used to set up for the draw 2 other turns down the line. We most of the time, once it get the draw 2 off of this, some instances we do just pop it immediately for the draw 1. But we want to draw 2 as often as possible with this card because this is one of our big gas engines of the deck. Next, we play a 2 of Blackened Scripture. I really like this card because it stops early aggression. I feel like a lot of players are like blindsided by this card because I don't think a lot of Haven players play this at many copies. Also, into the Dragon matchup, this is very powerful because if they play Ayala down on 3, we can just banish it away and they don't get the empty play point, which is very huge for us. Also, if we like ping things later or trade in Tigers into like Lucifer, you can use Blackened Scripture to banish it away if needed. Guardian Nun is a card that I undervalued early on. After seeing a local play it, I was very surprised about how great value this is. And when I talked to him about it, he kind of explained it, and I totally agree with him. So whenever you have a amulet on the board, this gains an extra health essentially, which is very big. So it's a 3/4 with ward, and then we play 2 of the Evo, which makes the numbers very good. So on Evo we heal 2. So we want to play for the very late game in this because we're trying to trade 1-for-1s until we get a lot of value with our Holy Sentinels and stuff like that to overrun our opponent when they have no more answers. So healing is very good, especially early on against aggro decks. And then when this gets the extra health, it becomes a 4/5 with ward, and that 5 health is very big because it makes it very awkward for people to trade into this card. Usually, a lot of times against like sword and stuff, they'll have to trade multiple things into this to get through. It gets every aggro deck. If you slam this Evo with the +1 health, it kind of wins the game for you alone. There, in some cases, it's a very powerful card that I undervalued early on, and I very much like this card. We play 3 of the Priestess of the Cudgel. I think that's pretty obvious. I think almost every list plays 3 of. Maybe there's some that play less than 3, which might be a mistake. I'm not very sure. But I really like this card. It evos into a 4/4 that banishes a 3 defense or less on the less defense on the field, which is very big. So once again, against like a Dragoncraft, we can banish the areas and things like that. A lot of times too, we can like ping certain things or run our Tigers in, and once again evo and remove like a Lucifer or something like that, which is really good. It's kind of awkward sometimes because the requirement is 3 defense or less, but it not too awkward where this card's still going to be a 2-for-1 against aggro matchups and things like that. So this card's just very powerful at the end of the day. I play a 1 of Death Sentence. I love and hate this card. The biggest issue is that when it comes into play, you can't get immediate value out of it because it comes into the field engaged. But when you find a turn where you can weave this in and, have like not lose tempo by playing this directly to the field, your opponent now has to stare at Death Sentence and go, if I play any big threats, it just immediately dies next turn. And if it's past turn 5, you probably get a Holy Sentinel off of this too. So your opponent plays a card, they lose a card, and then you gain the 4/4 Tiger, which is insane. But the biggest issue with this card is it's very hard to find the timing to weave this in to play this onto the board to be able to threaten that. So a lot of the times you're not playing this card onto the board until you're like turn 7, essentially. And that's why we play it as a 1 of. I feel like playing any more than 1 is just kind of like inting at that point. And sometimes this is just a dead card in your hand because it's just very hard to weave in because it costs 3 and you don't get immediate value out of it. Play a 2 of a Cruel Priestess. This card is amazing. It lets you recycle any of your amulets, which is very big. So you can recycle your draw 2 amulet. If you need tigers, things like that. Dual Flames. Summoning this and then pulling a Dual Flames from your cemeteries, huge. This is essentially a 4 play point, summon 7 worth of stats, and then you can pop that to get an additional 4 stats of that. So that's like 11 power right there, 11 worth of stats on the board from just playing this on like turn 6, and then pay 2, and then pop the Dual Flames, which we'll be looking at later. Very big. Very good recycling. Also, if your opponent ever does execute one of your Holy Sentinels, you can just bring it back using this, which is huge. Jeanne d'Arc is another tool we use to destroy the aggro matchup, and anytime our opponent goes wide, we can actually deal damage across the board. This is also one of the ways where we can deal damage across the board and then use something like Priestess of the Cudgel to banish something out that has like 5 play points or something like that. Very good into the aggro matchup. We play 3 of because we just want to see it all the time, because even in not against the aggro matchup, this card is still very good. We do play 2 of the Evo. I've never felt like I needed more than 2. Maybe if your area has a crazy amount of aggro, maybe you want to play 3. It just doesn't feel right though. But on Evo, it does an additional 2 damage to all enemy followers, and then gives all your other followers +2 health. The +2 health sometimes becomes very clutch because it makes it so your Tigers are like 4/6 with ward now, which is a little like rough for people to deal with because they can no longer just like slam Fafnir or something on the board and clear the board immediately. They have to like do a little extra damage to get there. Play 3 of Acolytes Light. This is probably one of the best quick spells that Haven can be playing. It banishes the enemy follower and then you gain 2 health, and this is part of the reason why you have to float 4 play points very often to threaten things like Acolytes Light or Execution, especially on turns where you know your opponent wants to play a big follower, their big bomb, and this just gets rid of it. Also, it banishes, so it does get around any last words that you might have to deal with. There's not too many I can think of off the top of my head. There's like 1 or 2 in Sword that you might consider banishing away just to stop them from getting their last word. But the big thing here is the +2 health also. Like I said, we want to go for the long game, and the longer the game goes, the higher and higher our win percentage chance becomes because our opponent starts losing gas. So healing is always good while answering big threats. 2 of Execution for mirror matches, sword matchup, things like that. Maybe if we want to just kill big things like Genesis Dragon, this is a very good card as well. You know, I think everyone knows that by now. Dual Flames, another card I undervalued very early on because I misinterpreted it a lot. Alone, this card just seems like okay value overall because it's a 4-drop that eventually becomes 6, paying 6 for 8/8 worth of stats. But what made this card like way better in my opinion is playing Cruel Priestess. That is insane, on top of playing it with Holy Sentinel, because you can play this, gain a tiger, pop it, gain another tiger, and then Holy Sentinel summons another tiger. So for 6 play points you get 12 worth of stats on the board, which is very, very huge and annoying for your opponent to deal with. I played 2 of Themis Decree. I used to play this as a 3 of, but it felt too cloggy in my hand. I've never felt like I needed more than 1 a game, essentially, sometimes. But essentially, if the board gets out of control a little bit and we have a lot of amulets on the board, we can Themis Decree the board, and then that just resets the board. Then we pop our amulets to summon a bunch of tigers, and now our opponent has nothing and has to deal with the tigers that we summon from like Dual Flames plus Holy Sentinel, things like that. Very clutch card in some situations, and also your opponent has to respect this card on turn 5 and not go any wider or commit more to the board if they can help it. So because then if you just drop a Themis Decree and like 1 for like 4 of them or 5 of them, that's like insane value. Holy Sentinel, this is like the namesake of the deck essentially, because this card lets us summon a bunch of Holy Tigers onto the board and threaten that over and over again. So we get value from our amulets from whatever effect they have, on top of also summoning 4/4 Holy Tiger with Rush, and it gains ward from it as well. So it becomes really awkward for our opponent because we can pop an amulet, trade immediately into something, and if it lives, they have to deal with this ward now that's like a 4 with X amount of health on it. It makes it very hard for our opponent to get good trades overall, because we're popping so many amulets every turn to summon an extra tiger every turn that eventually they just do not have enough resources to like control the board, and they get over flooded essentially because their hand size drops down, where we're trading 1 for 1 but gaining a lot of value from the 1 from 1 trades. As the game goes on, our opponent is getting less and less value as the game goes on. This is very powerful. We play this as a 2 of, like I said, because if they do execute it early, we always have the opportunity to play another one, or use Cruel Priestess to summon it back from the cemetery. But there are situations where if you drop 2 Holy Sentinels, like against Dragon, it kind of loses the game from there, because every turn you're like popping Death Sentence, summoning 2 tigers, killing off the Genesis Dragon, and now there's 2 Ward Tigers you have to deal with. It becomes too much and too fast for your opponent to deal with in those games where you get double Holy Sentinel out. We play 2 Curate. This card is the best worst card in the list, I think. The reason being is that Curate is a very awkward card to play. Essentially, you're not going to play this card ever until like turn 10, unless you're like slamming this on turn 6 or something for emergency button or something, because the +5 health and draw a card is okay on a 5/5 body, but this body your opponent can just ignore a lot of the times if it doesn't really do anything, because you can't attack with it immediately. You can't really do much. It's like the very crappy version of Shenlong. If this had ward, it'd probably be just as good as Shenlong, but it doesn't. So here we are. We still want to heal because, like I said, we want to have the game to go long, and a lot of times when the game goes long, there's a point where if we can drop this down and heal 5, it should get us out of like instant kill range essentially. And the draw 1 is nice because it replaces itself, and so if your opponent 1 for 1s this, you at least have the draw from it. That makes it very good. What's good about this card, though, even though it does kind of suck, is that when you're at 10 play points or and beyond those turns, playing this down immediately, drawing a card, healing 5 is very good, on top of being able to float 4 play points to threaten Acolytes Light or Execution. Those are 2 big spells you can threaten with this, because at 10 that you leave 4 open, now your opponent has to like awkwardly deal with it. And if you set up an amulet earlier with Holy Sentinel out, like for example Hair of Illusion or something, and you pop it, now they have to deal with a tiger too to get through this. That's still a lot of stats on the board while holding up 4 play points. Is very hard for your opponent to deal with. But Curate is a very awkward card to deal with. Still good enough, at least, because the heal 5 and draw card is okay, and that the fact that it's at 6 play points and not 7, meaning we can still hold up 4 play points, is at least good enough. Finally, games go very long. If we're not destroying our opponent with tigers over and over and over again, we are playing Lucifer. Lucifer is a very good card because as the game goes on, your opponent is going to have less and less gas to deal with creatures and things like that. So you can weave this in on a turn where your opponent might have like 2 or 3 cards in hand. They don't have much to work with, nothing on board. You can play Lucifer, don't engage it, heal 4. Now this is a threat your opponent has to immediately deal with. Otherwise, you always threaten the Evo form immediately after the following turn. So if Lucifer heals you 4 and lives cross turn, you can evo it, and now you're threatening 12 damage immediately because you send 8 to face, and then at end of turn you deal an additional 4, and then if your opponent doesn't deal with it again at that point, they've just basically lost the game, because then we're threatening another 12 damage, not including any of the followers that we did summon or tigers that we did summon prior to this that they didn't deal with. So there's a lot of plays where you just slam Lucifer and heal 4 while popping something like Dual Flames or something like that to go pop off with Holy Sentinel, and you summon tigers, you ward up with a tiger, trade in, or whatever you need to do, and the board kind of gets wide that way and very scary very fast. So the turn you're able to drop this, and you know for the most part you can protect it, or it's going to be very hard for your opponent to answer. And even sometimes if your opponent answers it, they just kind of wasted a lot of cards because you can just slam a second one down, or you already have tigers out on the board too immediately after. It's just very strong, and this is one of the best ways to close out the game once we've gotten to that point where the game has gone on long enough and we just need to end the game as soon as possible so we don't give our opponent a chance to draw any more outs or any chances to draw outs from that point. But yeah, that is the list overall. It's been a list I've been enjoying a lot. There is a lot of draw and pass the turn to your opponent because you want to keep up the play points just to threaten things and also be more reactive. This is a very reactive deck until you get to the point where you can start dropping threats like Lucifer or just summon a bunch of tigers off of Holy Sentinel to win the game. So, if you've been looking to play control lists with Haven, this is probably a very good list at least to try out and see if you like it. It's at least the control list I've been enjoying the most since I've started testing with it. I'm probably going to bring this to one of the qualifiers this month if possible, because every time I've played this list so far, it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, playing control in this game can be a lot of fun for some players like me and other players out there. But yeah. And that is it. If you've tried this list out, let us know in the comments what you think, or maybe what changes you would have made, and maybe you don't like Guardian Nun and you want to play Bellringer Angels instead, things like that. Let me know what you think and let others know, and we can all get better at playing Haven Control together. Besides that, we'll see you guys in the next video later.